It's time for some
bass.
So, what is bass? What does bass mean? Literally the word. Well, usually the word bass refers to the lowest part of the frequency spectrum that humans can hear. Remember, frequency refers to pitch, frequency, how frequent, that's how fast the vibration is. So low frequency means low pitch, slow vibration means low pitch, really low notes. So the bass part of the frequency spectrum is the lower part of it, where things start to sound deep. And that's kind of opposed to another term called treble, and treble means the upper part of the spectrum. So you might see on a radio in your car or somewhere else, it has options to change bass and treble. Treble is adjusting the high part of the spectrum, and bass is adjusting the low part of the spectrum. Now, when we're talking about composition and beats, bass is usually referring to bass lines, or it's referring to kick drums. Another name for a kick drum is a bass drum because it's low, that low sound. So when we're talking about bass lines, we want to know what instruments can play these things and really what they are. First of all, a bass line is just a melody. It's just a low melody that is kind of the foundation of the chords. So the chords are playing certain things and the bass line is following those chords but playing really low. And the bass isn't playing chords, the bass is just playing single notes. It's playing a melody, but that low melody emphasizes and makes solid those chords. So bass is extremely important. Now, for the instruments that can play these bass lines, usually, most often it's a bass guitar, like an electric bass guitar or an acoustic bass guitar, but there's also double bass, like you see in an orchestra or you see in jazz music, those huge stand-up basses. That's called the double bass. And synthesizers. So synthesizers can create bass tones really easily. And in fact, that's what I've got in this track, is I'm using my tie to create this sound. And we can take a quick listen to this bass line. I'll play it with the drums now. So you can see it's a melody. It's single notes one after another. Now, these notes don't exist in isolation. These notes are important because they reference the chords. So I'm going to bring the chords in now. Now I'm going to take the bass out. Sounds a little emptier, right? Here comes the bass again. See how the bass makes those chords feel really powerful and thick? So we can't overlook bass. Super important element. Now there's something we need to know about bass, which is that we don't want to have two bass lines going at one time. Certain other aspects, certain other elements of a beat can have multiple things going. Like you can have drums and percussion and some more percussion at the same time. You can have different instruments playing chords simultaneously, so long as they're playing the same chords, roughly. And you can sometimes even have different melodies going simultaneously. But having two bass lines go at the same time will actually clash and create confusion and possibly ruin your track. So when we're making the song in the next section, we want to be aware of that. When we pick a bass line, we just pick one. We're not trying to layer multiple bass lines on top of each other. Now you can have two instruments play the same bass line. That's totally fine. You can have two instruments play the same anything, and you get two different sounds playing the same thing, but that's not two bass lines. What I'm talking about is having two distinctly different bass lines playing at the same time. That will clash and that will ruin the feel of your track and make everything sound muddy and kind of gross and confused. And there's some physics about that as to why that is with the bass part, but suffice it to say for now that simply don't try to have two bass lines going at once. That's my recommendation anyway. Now, like with the drums, it's important that we start to hear bass, that we should listen to bass. So something important about that is that often we're listening to music on little, our phone speaker or laptop speakers or tiny little speakers. Tiny little speakers can't actually reproduce real bass frequencies. Now, a bass guitar or bass synthesizer has more frequencies in it than just the low ones, and so you can still hear those higher frequencies, but the actual low tones, you need some good headphones or some good speakers. Even better would be to have speakers with a subwoofer, then you can really get to hearing the bass. But training up how to hear bass is a little bit difficult for a lot of people, and let's talk about it just for a sec. So I'm going to play this once again, the whole song, and try just to focus on the bass. I'm going to remove it now. Feels emptier. Here it comes again. Gone. Back. So you might have noticed that the melody, which I'm calling the lead up here, lead is the kind of instrument that plays a melody in an electronic song. It's very distracting. It grabs your attention instantly, which is what it's supposed to do. But when we're trying to hear bass, we need to ignore that. Not just in this song, but in the songs we're going to listen to in the real world. When you're hearing music in the car or the radio or at school or wherever you happen to be, you need to try to block this melody out a little bit and block out the chords and see if you can dig down into your hearing and hear just these low frequencies. Focus on that bass and see if you can discern what's going on. Knowing about the elements of music is important, but it's even more important to be able to hear them in your own music and in music that you hear out in the world. So hearing bass, hearing drums, we covered so far, both really important, something I recommend you get into doing. In the next video, we're going to talk about chords.